right, back here on HQ Spotlight, free agency. It is almost here. The tampering window, that's on Monday, and then we get free agency officially starting on March 12th. We are looking at Pete Prisco's top free agents. Sam Darnold sitting at the top. Position value plays a factor there, so he is number one. Josh Sweat, Ronnie Stanley, Milton Williams, Drew Dalman. And again, you can find this full list from Pete over on our website at cbssports.com. We have Tyler Sullivan and John Breach here because you guys are going to play our free agency matchmakers. We are going to do rapid fire. We're going through all 32 teams, and one at a time we'll alternate. You guys are going to tell us who these teams could target, who they should use or go get in free agency. Let's start in the NFC East. We are starting with the Eagles. Breach, kick us off.
Well, we just saw Prisco's list. Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, both there. So if those guys are gone, they might need some defensive help. I got him taking Khalil Mack. That seems like a classic Howie Roseman move. You get someone on the cheap, but Khalil still has some gas left in the tank. And now that the Eagles are coming off a Super Bowl win, that seems like a destination I think free agents will want to go. So they beef up the defense with Khalil Mack.
Okay, and there's a lot of rules here for this game. One that I forgot is that you cannot repeat any players. So we have to get real original, especially once we get towards the AFC South, towards the bottom. Let's go to the Commanders. We know they have their quarterback of the future. They just get Debo from the Niners. Tyler, what moves should they be making at free agency?
Well, we also decided not to re-sign players, right? So what happens to me? I get to get Josh Sweat going to the Washington Commanders, helping that defensive edge. And I've been saying this all offseason. When you have a rookie quarterback on his rookie deal, you do everything in your power. You spend to the cows come home. You go all out to try to surround him with talent that includes the defensive side of the ball. This team was right outside the top 10 in pressure rate last season. You bring in Josh Sweat, you're now top 10, and you hurt your division rival in the process.
All right, let's go to the Cowboys because they just restructured Dak's contract. We know Micah Parsons is waiting there for a very big payday. And are they going to be aggressive? What is the phrase? All in? I don't know what Jerry Jones is saying anymore, but John, what do they do?
Jerry only says, how about them Cowboys? And that is what we're going to do here. The Cowboys are in obvious need of a number 2 receiver. They have CeeDee Lamb. They do not have much behind them. So for their move, they are going to reunite with an old friend, and that is Amari Cooper. Look, Cooper was there for 4 seasons. He's familiar with Dak Prescott. He's kind of familiar with that offense. So I think you bring him back. Now you have CeeDee Lamb. You have Amari Cooper. That's a pretty decent offense. So the Cowboys are taking a number 2 receiver there.
A homecoming of sorts, a reunion. We see that theme kind of trickled in throughout this segment. Let's finally cap off the division with the Giants, who did just re-sign Tommy Cutlets, but Tyler, they still need to address those quarterback issues. That's not going to be enough.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's Tommy Cutlets for the starting quarterback job in 2025. I actually have them going with Justin Fields. There was other quarterbacks that I kind of thought of, maybe one that also played in New York last year, but I decided to go younger at Justin Fields. It's a little bit more of a dart throw with a higher ceiling in my estimation. Younger player, hasn't really lived up to what his billing was with Chicago, obviously with Pittsburgh last year, kind of the backup to Russell Wilson. The Giants bring him in as kind of a little bit of a middling the road a little bit. I don't believe that they'll be able to get a quarterback at the 2025 NFL draft. I believe that 2 quarterbacks will go in the first 2 picks, which means they need to go to the veteran quarterback market. They bring in Justin Fields as kind of a low-cost option going forward.
All right, let's go to the NFC South, starting with the Bucs. John, who is someone that could be a fit for them in free agency?
Well, you look at Tampa Bay, their defense was not good in 2024. They gave up nearly 400 yards per game, nearly 30 points per game. So they need some defensive help, and they really need it at linebacker. So I have them signing Dre Greenlaw. We know he was coming off that Achilles injury that he suffered in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, missed a good chunk of the 2024 season. So maybe he would be willing to sign for a little bit lower, one of those 1-year prove-it deals. But I think Dre Greenlaw could make a huge difference in Tampa Bay.
Let's go to the Falcons, where, we've seen a little bit of a QB change. It's now Michael Penix Jr. moving forward. Not sure what they're going to do with Kirk Cousins, but who else could they use, Tyler?
They need edge rushing help. That's the number one thing. They have Matt Judon going into free agency. I have them going younger by bringing in Chase Young. And again, this team was bottom 3rd in the NFL in pressure rate, the actual bottom in the NFL in total sacks. They bring in Chase Young, who has been a serviceable player over the last few years, kind of, popped in his rookie year with the Washington football team, but now comes in serviceable young piece to continue building around this young core.
All right, we go to the Saints, where we love to use the phrase cap hell when we're talking about them. But Breach, you have them matching with a pretty big name that's going to be hitting the market.
Well, I should just pass here because, as you mentioned, there's no money to sign anyone. And as Tyler just mentioned, if the Panthers are signing Chase Young, that means the Saints need some passing help. So I'm going with Joey Bosa to land in New Orleans. Now, I know a lot of people thinking the 49ers would make sense because his brother's here, but there is some familiarity in New Orleans because he would be reuniting with Brandon Staley, who just got hired as the Saints defensive coordinator. That was Bosa's head coach in LA for 3 seasons. So Bosa rejoined Staley in New Orleans.
Yeah, we just had Pete Prisco on a little bit earlier, and he was saying, the Bosa bros both with the Niners. So we'll see what happens there. Finally, the Panthers, where Tyler, we know that Bryce Young would love to have some wide receivers. They need some more wideout help. Who do you have in mind?
Yeah, one of the more underrated aspects of the season was the resurgence of Bryce Young. And as you referenced, he does need another pass catcher. One that I think is sneaky under the radar for them is Stephon Diggs. Of course, coming off of the ACL injury, he might want a prove-it deal. He could go to Carolina, really command a boatload of targets. He can talk to his old friend Adam Thielen about the resurgence of Bryce Young. He can go there, possibly restore his market, maybe then hit the market again next offseason.
All right, let's go to the Rams. This is a team where they kind of backdoored their way into the playoffs this last season. Matt Stafford, after a lot of buzz, is he going to leave, stay? He is going to stay. John, what moves could they make in free agency?
Yeah, you look, the Rams have been pretty busy on offense, re-signing Tutu Atwell, obviously getting Matthew Stafford back. But for this move, we're going to go to the defensive side of the ball. This is a team that struggled to stop the run last season. They could use some help at linebacker. So I've got them signing Nick Bolton. Why not go out and get a Super Bowl champion, steal Bolton from the Kansas City Chiefs, bring him to Los Angeles so the Rams can win another Super Bowl?
All right, let's go to Seattle, where they've been very, very busy. They move on from Tyler Lockett. They're telling DK Metcalf that he can seek a trade. But Tyler, you have them going the O-line route.
I know. I just think that JSN is going to get 30 targets a game, right, at this rate, because they're getting rid of all their wide receivers. But they also need to protect their quarterback, right? Geno Smith was sacked 50 times last season. So I have them going after Tevin Jenkins. He's someone that will primarily play guard, but also has flexibility to kick out to tackle if need be. Again, even though you might not have any wide receivers other than JSN, you still need to protect Geno Smith. 50 sacks last year just can't happen. You solidify that with Jenkins on the interior.
All right, John, let's go on to the Cardinals. Who is someone that they could scoop up in free agency?
Yeah, they definitely could use some pass rushing help. I would say Josh Sweat, but the rules of this thing say we can't sign someone twice, and Sweat is already gone because Tyler drafted him. So we're going to go to Hassan Reddick. Now, that might sound like an interesting name here, but for one, he's already familiar with the Cardinals because he started his career in Arizona, and let's not forget he's also very familiar with Jonathan Gannon because when Hassan Reddick was in Philadelphia, Gannon was the defensive coordinator in 2022. So there will be some familiarity there, and Reddick decides to go back to Arizona.
All right, let's go to the Niners. As mentioned, Tyler, of course, Debo no longer there. They're going to get another Bosa brother coming in. Brock Purdy also set to make a whole lot more money than he is right now, but who could they target?
Yeah, I wanted to do the Bosa brother reunion, but Breach wouldn't let me. As we're going through this, he took him before I could even do it. So I had to go in a different direction. I had them going with Jonathan Allen, which was freshly released from the Washington Commanders today. Fills a need on the interior of the defensive line. And as you referenced, this team is going to now spend a lot of money for the quarterback position. So they're going to have to kind of cut corners. They already got rid of Javon Hargrave to clear cap space. They can bring in Jonathan Allen at a cheaper rate. They still get a 2-time Pro Bowl player. Was injured as part of last season, but overall should be able to help them on the defensive line.
All right, let's go to the NFC North, starting with the Lions. And this was a team that was really, really impacted by injuries and depth. All of that was a huge problem, especially come playoff time. John, who should they target come free agency?
Yeah, their defense really fell apart down the stretch. A lot of that did have to do with injuries. And once Aiden Hutchinson went down, they really had no pass rush. He got injured in October and still led the team in sacks, which just is absolutely astonishing. So you need to get Aiden Hutchinson some help. So I think the Lions, you make a big swing here and you get Milton Williams. You bring him in. Now you have some pass rushing help for Aiden Hutchinson, and I think that would improve that defense immensely.
All right, let's go to the Vikings, and this is a team that has a lot of guys that are about to hit the market here. Sam Darnold is still up for grabs, Tyler. So do you think he stays there? Which way are you going with Minnesota?
I'm not going back to the well with Sam Darnold. I like them going forward. J.J. McCarthy, maybe they bring in a veteran. I have them going on the defensive side of the ball. And again, Breach stole my pick right before me. I was going to go Milton Williams. I'm pivoting here, going Javon Hargrave, again, just released from the San Francisco 49ers. I think that this is a guy that could really help this team because one of the underrated issues with the Minnesota Vikings is they can get pressure off the edges, not so much on the interior. You get Hargrave was injured last season. I think that if he is back healthy, this is someone that had 11 sacks with the Philadelphia Eagles not too long ago from the interior. If they get even remotely close to that production, this defense for Brian Flores gets even more dangerous.
John, we mentioned that reunions and homecomings, that sort of thing is kind of a theme here, and that's exactly the direction that you're going with the Packers.
Yeah, when you look at Green Bay, during Super Bowl week, Josh Jacobs did an interview and he said, we need a number one wide receiver. When your running back is complaining about the fact you don't have a receiver, because that means he's going to get less touches if you bring in an actual number one receiver. So when Josh Jacobs starts complaining, I think that means you have to make a move. So I have the Packers calling up Devontae Adams and saying, hey, man, let's get the band back together. Why don't you come to Green Bay? We got to the playoffs last season. We need number one receiver to put us over the top. We think you can be that guy. So come back to Wisconsin. They end up with Devontae.
All right, let's go to the Bears. They just get Joe Thuney from KC, so it's very clear that their priority to protect Caleb Williams. That is a big priority for them. But Tyler, what's next for Chicago?
Yeah, they can continue building on the offensive line, or they can go to the defensive line, particularly off the edge. They need another presence outside of Montez Sweat, so I have them going after Matthew Judon. Josh Sweat could be an option here in real life, but for me in this scenario, we have Matthew Judon, who was with the Patriots last year, then went to the Atlanta Falcons, was okay. Wasn't the Matthew Judon that we remember a few years ago in New England, but I do think a change of scenery coming to the Chicago Bears could help them, again, improve that defense just as much as they need to help the offensive line.
All right, we're about the halfway through mark right now. We're talking about the Chiefs, one of only two teams to use the tag this last go-around. John, what is a good move for Kansas City?
Well, I think anyone who watched Super Bowl 59 knows that the Chiefs obviously need to improve their offensive line because Patrick Mahomes spent 4 quarters running for his life. The Chiefs know this too. That's why they used the franchise tag on Trey Smith. So now you've got one of your offensive linemen locked up. The key position they need to fill, though, is at left tackle. So I've got them signing Ronnie Stanley. You make the Ravens worse, one of your biggest competitors in the AFC. You improve at left tackle, and now you can get back to the Super Bowl for, the 10th, 11th straight time? I've lost track. I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, those 6 sacks, that was a career high for Patrick Mahomes, by the way. Let's go to the Chargers, where there's a lot of veteran wide receivers that are going to be there out on the free agency market, and this is exactly the route that you have them going, Tyler. No pun intended.
Yeah, I have them going Chris Godwin. He is legitimately, could be, the number one wide receiver on the market. You can make the case there between him, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs. But for me, this is a Chargers team who had a tremendous rookie season out of Ladd McConkey, but there's really not much there behind him. Quentin Johnston hasn't popped as much as you would want him to. You have Josh Palmer going into free agency. Justin Herbert needs another option. And Chris Godwin, yes, he suffered the season-ending ankle injury, but all indications are that he should be healthy enough for the 2025 season. You bring him in now, all of a sudden you legitimately have a 1-2 punch at wide receiver that is respectable around the NFL.
Let's go to the Broncos. And John, as a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, this one just kind of hurts my heart a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure Sean Payton's jaw dropped when he saw the news that the Jags were dumping Evan Ingram. He just caught 114 passes in 2023, and now you're done with him? That is absolutely a crazy move by Jacksonville, but it is to Denver's benefit because I think it makes sense for them to go out and sign Evan Ingram. The Broncos did not really get any help from their tight end group last season. I don't think they had a single tight end who went over 200 yards receiving. Ingram might be able to do that in the first 4 weeks of the season. So this would absolutely get Bo Nix some help, which is something I think the Broncos need to focus on during free agency.
Yeah, Evan Ingram just said, it's all love, Jax, but you guys just let a dog loose. I'm excited for what's next. I am not excited for that, and that hurts my heart. Let's go to the Raiders because they recently just made Max Crosby the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL for now. Tyler, you have Pete Carroll reuniting with an old friend in this one.
Yep, it's Russell Wilson heading out to Sin City to see his old friend Pete Carroll. I was thinking about Sam Darnold here, and in real life, that's kind of one of the names that's been linked to the Las Vegas Raiders. I have a hard time, Tom Brady, who's supposedly the puppet master behind the scenes now as the minority owner, I have a hard time seeing Tom Brady greenlight a massive contract for Sam Darnold. What I think is much more likely is him looking at Russell Wilson, a guy that he played against, and he knows that his new head coach has quite the familiarity with Russell Wilson. I see that as more of a middle ground. That won't preclude them from going after a quarterback at the NFL draft, but Russell Wilson could be that stopgap quarterback over the next couple of years while they develop a young signal caller.
Guys, it's really interesting because Sam Darnold was number 1 on Pete Prisco's top 100 free agent list, and he is still up for grabs. We are 20 teams in, and we have not paired him with any of these teams. And we're definitely not going to pair him in this next one because we're talking about the Bills. Josh Allen gets the MVP finally, but they're still trying to get over that hump and get to a Super Bowl. John, what could potentially push them further in the right direction? Who is the guy?
Yeah, they don't sign Sam Darnold, but they do get a former Jets player. I think if you look at the Bills, they don't have there's not very many huge holes on this roster. They probably could stand assign a receiver, but I do think they also could use some help in the secondary. So that's why I have them signing DJ Reed. I think that would be a massive upgrade for what they have now in the secondary. And since he's coming from the Jets, that makes the division rival worse. So it's a win-win situation for Buffalo.
Next up, the Miami Dolphins. They just gave Tua a big payday last season. They're still in search of getting a playoff win. So Tyler, what move do they make or should they make at free agency?
Yeah, they have a lot of needs. You can go the offensive line. You can go in the secondary on defense. But I have a sneaky need here. It's secondary quarterback. It's backup quarterback. QB2. I have them going after Marcus Mariota. We saw what happens when Tua Tagovailoa misses time. When it's either Skylar Thompson or Snoop Huntley, the offense absolutely cratered, well under 500. They barely managed 2 touchdowns a game on average. You bring in a guy like Marcus Mariota, who in the off chance that Tua Tagovailoa misses time, he is someone that has plenty of starts under his belt, can keep the offense afloat until Tua Tagovailoa comes back.
Now over to the Jets. It is a new era there. Aaron Glenn is the new guy in charge. They're moving on from Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, just kind of cleaning house. But who comes to mind as a fit here, John?
All right, I got a little crazy here. Look, the Jets need a quarterback, and as we know, we can't re-sign a guy that's already been drafted, so Justin Fields is out, Russell Wilson's out. A lot of these free agent quarterbacks are gone, so that leaves me with Sam Darnold returning to New York. Look, he left them the first time around with his tail between his legs. Now he'll come back as a true success story after leading the Vikings to a 14-3 record. Then maybe you draft a quarterback, you have Darnold tutor him for a year, and boom, you're set at quarterback forever.
Finally, 23 teams in, and we get to Sam Darnold. All right, Tyler, the Patriots, they have a lot of holes, but a lot of money to fill those holes. What do they do?
Yeah, I have them addressing the offensive line. Ideally, it's Ronnie Stanley, but he's already taken, so I have them going with Cam Robinson, the former Jacksonville Jaguars, then Minnesota Vikings tackle. He's someone who I think could come in, play left tackle for them, for a team that has left that position barren for the last couple of years. You saw how bad it was a year ago. Now that you have Drake May solidified as your starting quarterback going forward, you have to protect him. We've seen the Chicago Bears do that. Now it's the Patriots' turn to put a wall in front of Drake May. They start by doing that with Cam Robinson.
All right, 2 more divisions to go. Let's go to the AFC North, or the Ravens. John, what should they do?
Look, the Ravens might be losing Ronnie Stanley. When you have Lamar Jackson at quarterback and Derrick Henry at running back, you have to have a strong offensive line. So they need to go out, make a splash, sign an offensive lineman. So I have them getting Brandon Scherf. That fills one of your spots on the interior offensive line, and that will make life much easier for both Lamar and Derrick Henry.
All right, the Steelers, we know the defense is solid. The quarterback, still a lot of questions around that. And Tyler, you have them going the veteran quarterback route.
Right, Russell Wilson off the board, Justin Fields off the board, Sam Darnold off the board. Where do we go? We go to Aaron Rodgers. We pair him with Mike Tomlin, him going to Pittsburgh. Again, this team needs a quarterback. They don't really know what their future is heading into free agency right now. Do they like what they had in either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, or do they try to reach for a shorter term, higher ceiling possibility with Aaron Rodgers? If he is the Aaron Rodgers of old, I know we were saying that when he was with the New York Jets, but if he somehow rekindles that magic in Pittsburgh, that's a dangerous team.
All right, let's go to the the Bengals. They tag T. Higgins, got to pay Jamar, allow Trey Hendrickson to seek a trade. What do our beloved Bengals do, John Breach?
Well, Jack, we know the Bengals are a frugal team. They're not going to pay Trey Hendrickson. They're letting him just kind of walk away. Of course, they'll get compensation if he gets traded. They're going to give all their money to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So it feels like we're in a spot where the Bengals are just going to put a message out that, hey, if you can pass rush and you'll take a deal for about $10 million a year, we want you. And that is how they end up with Draymond Jones in this spot. So that is who the Bengals are going to sign here.
Shout out to that gross Grater's ice cream that is Skyline chili flavored in the background of Breach's shot. Let's move on to the Browns. We are wondering if they're going to go the quarterback route or the Abdul Carter route when it comes to the draft. Tyler, what is next for the Browns in free agency?
Yeah, in this scenario, I'm envisioning that they do take a quarterback at number 2 overall. I just have a hard time imagining that they pass that up, especially with the injury to Deshaun Watson. The underlying story here is that Nick Chubb, their mainstay in the backfield, I know he was coming off the injury, but he's entering free agency. So I have them going after Aaron Jones to fill that need in the rushing department. This team was bottom of the barrel in rushing yards per game. So they bring in someone who's a versatile rusher, but also can work as a pass catcher out of the backfield to help stabilize the offense.
All right, finally, we have made it to the AFC South, starting with the Texans. They just get Christian Kirk from Jacksonville. John, who is the guy that they could potentially target moving forward?
Yeah, obviously receiver was a huge need, but they filled it with, as you mentioned, the Christian Kirk trade. So I think now you have to look at the offensive line. One reason C.J. Stroud struggled during his sophomore season was because he just didn't have any time to throw. He took the second most sacks in the NFL behind only Caleb Williams. So that is why the Texans are going to go out and sign Drew Dahlman. So now you have a major upgrade at center, and that's exactly what they need. They probably maybe need to add another offensive lineman or two. I think Drew Dahlman would be a good start for Houston.
All right, 3 more teams to go. The Colts. Tyler, what is the move for them?
Yeah, they've talked about trying to add a veteran quarterback, so let's give them one. Let's give them Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones, signing with the Indianapolis Colts. They want somebody that can compete with Anthony Richardson as the starting quarterback going into next season. You can make the case that you can run a similar type of playbook with Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. We saw during his time with the New York Giants that Jones, very mobile, can work as kind of one of those goal line package quarterbacks that we've seen Anthony Richardson use throughout his tenure so far in the NFL. So let those two duke it out. Who knows? Maybe Danny Dimes is the Colts starter in week 1.
Come on, that is so disrespectful to Anthony Richardson, but I digress. Let's go to the Jags. As mentioned, Ingram is out. Kirk traded him to a division rival. John, what do we do? Josh Hines Allen is on X saying he's never seen so many moves and they're cleaning house. So what do the Jags need?
Yeah, well, Jacko, I just realized you're a resident cat lady because you're a fan of the Bengals and Jags.
That's
pretty amazing. I mean, really? Well, then you watched plenty of what Jacksonville did on defense last season, and it was not pretty at all. The secondary really struggled. They couldn't stop the pass. So what they're going to do in free agency is go out and sign a cornerback, and that is Carlton Davis. They grab him away from the Detroit Lions, and that would be a huge upgrade over pretty much what they had last season when they couldn't stop anyone.
All right, finally, the Tennessee Titans. They are on the clock. Tyler, what do? You have like 30 seconds.
I have them selecting Cam Ward as number 1 overall. So they have their quarterback. Plus, there's no other quarterbacks I don't think that we could even choose for this exercise. So I have them addressing wide receiver, giving him a pass-catching option in Darius Slayton, opposite of Calvin Ridley. Kind of an underrated receiver now. He can win deep, had some inconsistent play in New York, but was still productive. Again, someone who can win deep and is a serviceable wide receiver too.
Tyler, Breach, it has been fun. This rapid-fire NFL matchmaker free agency game. We made it. We got through all 32 teams, and we have some upcoming dates to look forward to. Free agency, it officially kicks off on March 12th, and then, of course, the NFL draft as we look ahead to that on April 24th in Green Bay, Wisconsin.